Hello, I'm Dr. Ryan Reynolds, a member of the Resiliency Research Team at the University of British Columbia. In this video, I'll be conducting a short tutorial on the Resiliency platform, specifically on how to use the platform to determine what your peer communities across Canada are doing to learn about and address coastal hazards. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge our two funding agencies for the project, the Marine Environmental Observation, Prediction, and Response Network, or MEOPAR, and the University of British Columbia, which hosts the platform. We know from our research that Canadian communities look to their peers as one method for determining which risk reduction efforts might be best suited or most effective in addressing coastal hazard risk in their own community. However, how can a community identify other communities that are exposed to these similar hazards and share similar vulnerability profiles? And which of these communities have already studied or implemented the kinds of plans they are thinking of bringing to their own community? Resiliency seeks to address these questions by incorporating information from three different data sets. First, which communities share similar hazards exposure to theirs? Second, which communities share similar profiles according to economics, population, built to natural environments, and local government? And finally, we'll also examine the actions these communities have taken to learn about and address local coastal hazard threats. Now, when we come to looking at community profiles and the similarity of those profiles, we assess that similarity across a set of 25 vulnerability indicators shown here. These are broken out into 5 different capitals: economic, social, built environment, natural environment, and institutional, and 5 different dimensions: size, spatial structure, composition, integration, and change. If you'd like to learn more about the individual indicators that are shown here, you can go to the Vulnerability Indicators section of the Resiliency website. What's most important for this tutorial is that we use these indicators to establish community similarity on a scale ranging from 0, meaning very dissimilar, to 1, meaning very similar. This is called the Hazard Vulnerability Similarity Index, and the best matches are going to be found when we compare two communities at a value of 0.8 or above. Once you've identified potential peer communities, Resiliency can help you to explore each peer in more detail and even identify who might be your best contact in each of those communities to learn more. I'm going to continue on with a short demonstration directly from the website. So here we see the Resiliency website. For more information in the future, you can go under Help to look at the FAQ, explore the tutorial in more detail, and watch our additional videos and webinars. Now, we're most interested in identifying from our set of over 180 communities, which communities might be most similar to our own. So first we have to identify our own community from our data set. There's several different ways we can do this. You can click on Select a Community button right on the home page, or go to the top right corner of the button and look at our search box. By clicking on it, you'll see the list of every community in our data set, or you can begin typing to narrow that search down to specific communities. But I'm going to use the sidebar Select a New Community button to begin our process, and I'll be coming back to the sidebar a little bit more in the future. What you're seeing on screen might differ from your own browser as the site adapts to the size and resolution of your monitor. So on smaller or more mobile devices, this sidebar may be collapsed and you just need to tap on it or click on it to open it. All right. As you can see here from this map, these are all 182 communities in our data set. They're not particularly helpful right now, but if you mouse over them, you can at least see the name of each of those communities. You can also use the quick zoom here, located at the top, to zoom into a specific region. Let's choose Nova Scotia. That's a little better. We can at least start to see individual communities start to pop out. But if we're looking for a specific community, we can actually circumvent having to find it on the map and just use our search bar here. You can see at the top, any of your most recent searches are shown with this icon, and then all of our other communities are listed with the little magnifying glass below. But we can narrow that search down by just beginning to type. So I'm most interested in Digby, Nova Scotia. So I put in Dig, and you can see we already have narrowed it down to 2 communities, the town of Digby and the district of Digby. I'm going to click on Town of Digby. This opens up the community profile for the town of Digby, Nova Scotia, shown here. Along the left-hand side, you'll see indicators to take us to different portions of this page. Let's start with hazards exposure. Now, for every community in our data set, we have information on which of the 5 hazards shown here they may or may not be exposed to. For Digby, that includes coastal and riverine flooding, earthquakes, tsunamis, but we don't have data for contaminant spills, so that's shown as not available right now. And we can see that they have low earthquake and tsunami risk values. And we mouse over here to get more information about that. But they are definitely exposed to both riverine and coastal flooding. And today, let's focus in on coastal flooding a little bit. If we go to the next section, these are the HVSI indicators, those 25 indicators I mentioned earlier, each broken into a tab for each of the 5 different capitals. Along the left-hand side, you see the dimension and the names of the individual indicators, along with how we measure that, and the description of that particular item, along with the source data we got that information from. Here, you'll see a lot of census data. You'll also see the individual values for each of those indicators for this community, in this case, Digby, Nova Scotia. And we can go through the different tabs to look at the indicators for the other capitals. That might be useful, but it's not as helpful as understanding what actions communities have taken to address risks in their community. So let's jump down to community actions data. Here we're showing the community actions that the community of Digby has taken, and we've coded into our database. For coastal flooding, this largely consists of technical studies and capacity building. You can see a description on the left-hand side of that action, which category they fall into, and by mousing over, you can get a quick description of each of those categories. Next, we show the long-term strategies, which aren't relevant in this particular case. They're all not applicable. The stage, all of these show groundwork, and a link that we can use to access the original source document, which I'll come back to in a minute. That gives us a quick understanding of what's happening in Digby, but we really want to focus in on who might be a good match to learn from for Digby. So let's go over to the left-hand side column and find similar communities and click there. It'll take a moment for the map to load, but as it does, what I'm showing on screen might be slightly different from what you're seeing, depending on the size of your screen. On large screens, you'll see the 10 most similar communities located on the right-hand side of your screen, whereas on smaller screens, it may be located along the bottom. Regardless, you can scroll through that list to find the communities that we've identified as being most similar across Canada to the target community, in this case, Digby, Nova Scotia. But we can narrow that search down a little bit more. I'm going to click here on Show Map Filters to open up a way to kind of narrow that search. Here you see all of the 25 indicators that we use for social and economic vulnerability. I'm not interested in that today. What I'm most interested in is just focusing on coastal flooding and land use regulations. So I'm going to uncheck riverine flooding, earthquakes, tsunamis, and contaminant spills, and all of the other action categories except for land use regulations. When I'm done, I'm going to click on Apply Filters and just focus in on those communities that have land use regulations and address coastal hazard risk. It'll take a moment or two for the site to update as it's calculating this in real time. Now we should see the 10 most similar communities is already updated, and some items have been removed from our map. It's still a lot though, so we can narrow this down a little bit more easily. Communities shown with markers in blue are fairly dissimilar and maybe not of use to us. Those in orange, dark orange, or red are much more similar, and they're the places we're most likely to find our peers. Now, because the goal is to show that this works across the entire country, I'm going to focus in on BC on the other side. We could see most communities here are either blue or orange, but there's 2 that stand out in red as potential matches for us. I'm just going to zoom into those. The first here in the north is Powell River at 0.86, a fairly good match. And down here we have Gibson's at 0.87, also an excellent match. So I'm just going to tap on that to bring us directly to a comparison with Gibson's BC. The comparison page shows where these 2 communities are located, Gibson's in BC and Digby in Nova Scotia. On the left-hand side are drop-downs you can use to quickly change those communities if you like. But we're going to jump down to the overall similarity ratings. That 0.87 is calculated out for different capitals as well. And we can see that the match is highest amongst the social, natural environment, and institutional indicators, and lowest for economic and built environment. But to be fair, they're all still pretty similar here. Let's dive down to economic capital and take a peek there. Here we show just that particular capital similarity. And then for each of the 5 indicators within that capital, we show a quick description of it. You can mouse over the question mark here for more detailed descriptions. And then we show the actual values for each of our 2 communities. So if we focus here on median household income for a moment, we see in Digby that value is about 36,300 as of the last census. Whereas for Gibson's BC on the right-hand side, it's about 57,300. We can compare those to our overall data set using the magnitude. You could see that Digby's on the low end of our magnitude, and Gibson's is somewhere in the middle. These values give them an HVSI value for that one indicator of 0.7. For other indicators, we see 0.97, 96, 59, and 0.88. These will allow us to kind of figure out where the 2 communities are most similar and where they differ, and those may be relevant to the work you're doing. We can repeat this for all of the different capitals to look through those and see where they match most closely. But let's just say we're interested in seeing if Gibson's has done work that might be relevant to us. I'm going to jump up to the top here and click on the Gibson's link. That'll bring us to the community profile for Gibson's BC, similar to the one we showed for Digby. Again, I'm going to jump down to hazards exposure, and we'll see that they have exposure to all of the 5 categories that we have for hazards. They are exposed to coastal hazard risk and have taken 17 actions to address it. So let's just jump down to see what those look like by clicking on the link. Excellent. So we can see that they've taken a number of different actions to address coastal flooding risk. I could just kind of scroll through these. They include things like, looking at setbacks, minimum building heights, etc. The categories for these range from land use regulations, which I was really interested in, through to technical studies, construction guidelines, damage mitigation, and so on. We can see that the different long-term approaches are also represented here with protect, avoid, accommodate, and many others shown there as well. We can also see a lot of green check marks here, which means that they've actually implemented many of these, and they're not just groundwork like we saw with Digby. Now, if I want to learn a little bit more, I can actually click on the link to activate Gibson's Smart Plan and load it within my browser. Now, this is a fairly large PDF document, but as you search through, you'll be able to find the exact mention that we saw in the description on resiliency and learn more about what's happening. We don't really have time to go through that today, so I'm just going to close the link for today. If you happen to find a broken link, please let us know because these are changing all the time. All right, that's pretty good. We now have a decent understanding of what's happening, but if we want to actually reach out, who do we go to? Well, at the very bottom, we show community contact information. This includes the correct person and their position within the community, their email address if we know it, their telephone number if we have it, and also the community website. So that will allow you to connect directly with your counterparts across the country. All right, that worked out pretty well. If you're looking for more information, again, just look under help, go to our FAQ, review the tutorial, or look at our additional videos and webinars. You can learn more about the individual components by going to About, looking at the hazards we track, the vulnerability indicators we use, how we do that processing behind the scenes, and what kinds of actions are recorded in our data set. We also have additional reports that you can review to learn more about very focused elements of the work that we've done here. Okay, I'm just going to go back over to the demonstration, and we're going to conclude with a quick review. First, on the start page, click on a community map marker or use the search bar to identify a community of interest from our 180 plus in our database. That becomes your target community. Next, On the Find Similarity Communities map, you can use filters to narrow down communities most likely to be peers to your target community. Or, if you prefer, rely on the quick and easy top 10 lists shown along either the right-hand side or the bottom side of your screen. Next, by clicking on one of those markers, you can use the Compare Communities page to explore the similarity of two particular communities, either overall, by capital, or at the level of individual indicators. Fourth, you can use a community's profile page to explore its coastal hazard exposure and the risk reduction actions taken to study or address specific hazards. 5, click on the link to review public source documents to find out more detail about how your peers have addressed coastal hazards and to look at what they're planning for the future. These are generally in PDF, website, or Word document formats. And finally, you can use the contact information provided at the bottom of the profile page to connect with your counterparts to share knowledge and experiences. And that sums it up. If you'd like to learn more about how to use Resilient-C, go to the website, resilient-c.ubc.ca. Or you can reach out to us by email at resilient.coasts@ubc.ca. Thank you very much.